what the black man and woman needs to know about the nation, about the world, about themselves. Muhammad Speaks It. To order your 12-issue subscription to Muhammad Speaks newspaper, 313-371-7033. 313-371-7033. Kareem Bean Pie is the grand champion of all bean pies. The rich flavor and smooth texture takes this pie to a whole new level of delicious. One bite and you'll understand why people all over the country call daily to order Kareem Bean Pie. 313-371-7033. That's 313-371-7033. Kareem Bean Pie.
This bean pie is delicious.
Muhammad Speaks presents Messenger Elijah Muhammad's Teachings by Minister Khalil Shabazz every Sunday from 2 to 3 p.m. at Muhammad's Temple of Islam, 12609 East McNichols Road in Detroit.
Well, sister, rise for prayer. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Merciful. So, Master's Day of Judgment in which we now live, the alone do we serve, and the alone seek for thine help and aid. O Allah, please guide us on the right path of those upon whom thou hast bestowed thy favors, not on the path of those upon whom thy wrath is brought down, nor those who go astray if they heard thy teachings. Say he, Allah is one God. Allah is he of whom nothing is independent, but upon whom we all depend. He begetteth not, nor is he begotten, there is none like him. And I bear witness that none is to be served, worship, or praise besides Allah, who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. And I bear witness that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is our true servant and last apostle. Ameen. I'd like to acknowledge the brothers and sisters that extended us the greetings of Assalamu Alaikum. We have Brother Minister Mutaquan Ali from Philly. We have Brother Mutakabir Ali from New Jersey. We have Brother Hanif from Hawaii. We have Brother Angelo Shabazz from New York. We have Brother Wali Muhammad from New Orleans. And we have Sister Barbara from Virginia. And I'd like to say in the name of Allah, who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, and in the name of his last and greatest messenger, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, I'd like to greet the brothers and sisters with the Nation of Islam's greeting words of peace of Assalamu Alaikum. Today, we'd like to talk about the August 9th, 1968 Muhammad Speaks, and it's called The Black Man's Confusion. You see the messenger got the sign of the cross, which is the sign of death, and the star and crescent is the sign of life. In the article, the messenger says, he says, we the Muslims will be the victors over all religions and over all opponent races, with our God, the great champion of Islam, in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, to whom all praises is due. So that's how the messenger always, when you read only his articles, he always put Master Farad Muhammad on top. And that's why we stress so much to get the teachers straight from the messenger's articles, to really get an understanding of the messenger. Because when you only read the messenger's articles, it's like you gaining a relationship with the messenger even though he ain't here. So when you read his articles only, you get to see or listen to a brother talk, you can tell. Like the messenger didn't say that. Even though a brother, because brothers quote the messenger a lot. Because the messenger said in the Theology of Time, he said a lot of these brothers use my name to get your lives accepted.
You have many things, discourse, putting out to the people, as though I teach you that, so that you will get you others in the true perfection. Brothers and sisters, I do not teach this people other than the truth. What I teach is truth. I'm not here to add nothing to the truth. I'm not here to try to make you think that I'm something that I'm not. If you think that I'm trying to make you see me in the light of something that I'm not in, Get your book and come on and I will get my book. And I will prove to you that I don't go beyond the scope of my on or rather mission that Allah has given to me.
So people know how to say what the messenger said, but twist it. And their meaning is different. So when you read the articles of the messenger and you hear him repetitively talk about stuff over and over and over again, that's how you gain a relationship with the messenger in your mind to see when you listen to brothers. You can tell whether they quoting the messenger right or they trying to pull a fast. So the messenger goes on to say, he says, Africa is the native home of the black man in America and the black man of the entire Western Hemisphere. Africa is carved into many religions from traditional origin to Christianity and Islam. He says the American black people are being called on today by the word of Allah through me to accept their own and to love to accept their own. The black man in America are a little confused due to the desire to be self-leaders and self-teachers. This is an example of self-leaders and self-teach, just two examples. It's many examples of self-leaders. But when we talk about this Afrocentric stuff, John Henry Clark, which is this brother right here, and Dr. Ben, which is this brother right here, are self-leaders. And the only reason, because in this new school stuff, these brothers is called the master teachers. That's what they known as in this new school stuff. The only reason why they known as master teachers, the Muslims is to blame for that. We don't teach Islam like the messenger taught Islam. Right. When the messenger was alive, Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark was alive too. Yes. Doing the same thing they was doing today. Ain't nobody checking on no Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark when the messenger was alive. Because the messenger was banging on this Afrocentric stuff. And the ministers too. So, wasn't nobody, Martin Luther King wasn't seeking counsel from Dr. Ben or Dr. Clark. The Black Panther Party wasn't seeking no counsel with them. The Urban League and all them people wasn't seeking no counsel with them. They was just college professors. Right. Doing lectures. That's all they was doing. Writing little books. Writing little newspaper articles. That's as important as Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark was when the messenger was alive. Wasn't nobody studying them. But today they master teachers. And they talk straight against the messenger. This book right here is one of Dr. Clark's books. Because we don't have time to go through all their books. But this one of this John Joseph Ben Yakin's book. It's called The African Origin of the Major Western Religions. And then he got at the bottom, the black man's religion. Who he shotting at? Taking his shot at? The master. Straight up with his book now. This master teacher now. Now, if you go on YouTube and listen to all these Muslims talk Islam, quote unquote, where's their rebuttal to this Afrocentric stuff? This brother got a book out talking about the black man's religion. He teaching black people that Islam, Christianity, and Judaism come out of Africa. Coming at the messenger. The messenger said Islam is as old as God himself. What he said about Islam, he said the planet Earth is the home of Islam. Islam ain't come out of no Africa. But these master teachers, because these brothers today ain't doing nothing but using the messenger's name to get their lives accepted. So they ain't concerned with teaching no Islam. Because the part of the knowledge of self is to teach against Afrocentric stuff. That's a part of the knowledge of self. Because that's what the messenger did. So this brother got another book. This book is called The Myth of Genesis and Exodus and the Exclusion of Their African Origin. The Black Man's Religion, Volume 2. He keep going at the messenger. But when you listen to these new school brothers with all this the black man's God stuff we be talking, why you ain't teaching the history of the black man in Africa? When he was a savage, living a savage life. bones in the nose. That's the messenger's teaching, 50,000 years. We ain't talking this black man, this God stuff. We just use that for self-exaltation, to put ourselves on the same level with Master Farah Muhammad. But the knowledge of self is to know that 50,000 year history of us in Africa. The messenger said we was living savage. That's what he said. That's why he did not allow Muslims to accept that traditional Africa, because he was teaching against that. So then you got another book. It says the need for a black Bible. It says the Black Man Religion, Volume 3. He keep going at the message. But now you got all these Muslims with all this talk we be talking. You can't find one hardly. You can count on your hand how many brothers actually teach the teachings of the messenger about this Afrocentric stuff. But yet these master teachers coming out with books straight up talking against the messenger. Even say the messenger's name. Because these two brothers are Malcolm X lovers. Love Malcolm X. They didn't like what the messenger and the Muslims did to Malcolm X. So when you read their books, it's more than them just going to Africa, getting the truth about Islam and then telling it to the people. They using their stuff now to attack the messenger. To do to the messenger what they couldn't do when the messenger was alive. Because when the messenger was alive, wasn't nobody listening to them. But now, since they can see that the Nation of Islam different now, I can come out with this book and ain't no Muslim gonna say nothing. I can even put the black man's religion on it, say Elijah Muhammad's name, tell you Islam came from some Africans, and ain't nobody gonna say nothing. But when the messenger was alive, no. A Muslim would have seen this book, they would have said something about it. And Muhammad speaks, as a minister said something. But we don't say nothing today. So the messenger goes on. He says the American black people are being called on today by the word of Allah through me to accept their own and to love and to accept their own. The black people in America are a little confused due to their desire to be self-leaders and self-teachers, and for the sake of being called leaders of their people. Some of them are thieves and robbers, and they call themselves leaders for the sake of robbing their followers of a few dollars for self-need. This is causing confusion among the black people of America. Although the spirit is high for black self, having a desire to be their own leaders is returning to Africa, they are making grave mistakes in such things as accepting traditional and tribal African and Christian customs as their choice. They are not particular about religion. They are trying to get around being under the strict code of the religion of Islam. That's what all these people trying to do. They trying to get away from the strict code of the religion of Islam. Because in Islam, we can't do what we want to do. Right. So now that the messenger no longer with us, Muslims trying to get away from that strict code of Islam. So they don't teach Islam like the messenger taught Islam, against stuff. Because the messenger said that Islam is here to take over all religions. All religions. So you're supposed to be talking against the Afrocentric stuff, because it's here to take over that. Just like in Africa when Muhammad came and them Africans started to accept Islam, it started to change their way of life. Because when you read about how people used to talk about Islam before they started hating on the messenger, they used to talk about Islam different than how we talk about Islam today. Because when we talk about Islam today, we like to talk about it's an Arab religion and slavery, and Islam was worse than the slavery in America. But you got in, this comes from the March 30th, 1929 Pittsburgh Carrier. And this is from J.A. Rogers. It says, African slave who became religious prophet, Bilal ibn Rahab was Muhammad's chief and started Arabic religious customs. So when they used to have this little black history stuff, they used to also write about Islamic people who was black. In 1929, this is J.A. Rogers writing about Bilal. They weren't talking about Islam like how Dr. B and them talking about Islam, because they love Malcolm X. And they don't like the fact that the messenger was talking against that traditional Africa stuff. So now when they go into Africa and get all of this research, they say, they speak against against Islam, making black people think evil of Islam. But before they start hating on the messenger, in the Pittsburgh Carrier, J.A. Rogers used to write about Islamic black people in the Quran or in the history of Islam. And J.A. Rogers says, when the Christian Negro points with pride to St. Augustine, the Numidian Negro, and tells what he did to advance Christianity, the Mohammedan Negro can point to Bilal and tell what he did for his religion. They weren't talking against Islam like people do now. Then he goes on to tell you, he says, some of what has been said here is to be found in Christianity, Islam, and the Negro race. The work of Blackman, a great Negro scholar. So you also had black people writing scholarly work on the black people who was Muslims and was great Negroes, they called. In this book, chapter in this book is called Mohammedanism and the Negro Race. And this book goes even further to 1887. That's when this book come out, in 1887. It says, no one can travel any distance in the interior of West Africa without being struck with the different aspects of society in different localities, according as the populace is pagan or Mohammedan. Because they used to call Muslims Mohammedans. That's what they used to call Muslims. It says, not only is there a difference in the methods of government, but in general regulations of society and even in the amusements of the people. The love of noisy tepsitouring performances, so noticeable in pagan communities, disappear as the people come under the influence of Mohammedanism. So when they be pagan and love that pagan stuff, they be liking all that dancing and the beating of the drum stuff. But he said when they become under Mohammedanism, that disappeared. Now this is in 1887. Way before Dr. Bean and Dr. Clark started hating on the messenger from Malcolm X. They said, it is not a fact that when the sun goes down, all Africa dances. But it might be a fact if it were not for the influence of Islam. So he's saying if it wasn't for Islam, all these people would be all that dancing with the bangos and stuff. But since Islam that came among these Africans, it done changed. Then he says, those who would once have sought pleasure in the excitement of the tom-tom now repair 5 times a day to the mosque, where they spend a quarter of an hour on each occasion in devotional exercise. After laborers of the day, they assemble in groups near the mosque to hear the Quran recited, or the traditions or some other book read. In traveling the region of country between Sierra Leone and Fatah Jala in 1873, we passed through many populous pagan towns, and the traditions from these to Mohammedan districts were striking. It says, when we left a pagan and entered a Mohammedan community, we at once noticed that we had entered a moral atmosphere widely separated from the lofty far than the one we had left. We discovered that the character, feelings, and condition of the people were profoundly altered and improved. All praise due to Allah. This is in 1887. These people ain't had no reason to be hating and lying on Islam. They just like, this is what we see when we go. They different from them pagans. They civilized. Distinctly different. The same thing the messenger was telling us. That Islam civilizes you. All praise due to Allah. He said that Islam was civilized and he said it. That's what he said. And it's the facts. Before they started hating on the messenger, they used to even have in the Pittsburgh Carrier, they used to talk about all kinds. This comes from the December 14th, 1935 Pittsburgh Carrier. And they talking about another Muslim that was black during the time of Prophet Muhammad. This is how they used to talk about Islam. It wasn't no hating on Islam to try to make us think it's an Arab religion. They used to teach black people you can be proud just like these Christians proud of your religion. You got black people in your religion too. That's how J.A. Rogers used to write on Islam. So the messenger goes on to say, he says, they are trying to get around being under the strict code of the religion of Islam. While Africa will not receive an exodus back to Africa of black Christians from America, their chiefs have admitted to me that black Christians cannot be removed from Africa or from America back to Africa in large numbers because black Africa is tired of Christianity's rule over her. Yet without the true spirit of the truth of themselves, the Africans have made and still are making mistakes in integrating with and intermarrying with white Christians and leaving their countries to be guided and ruled by the white Christian world for the sake of the Europeans and American shiny dollars. So he even used to talk against them too, talking about them intermarrying with the devil. So he says, it's a section that says tradition. It says these religions or traditional religious beliefs cannot help the American so-called Negroes at all. They will be degrading themselves to adapt such practices just because of their black African people. They want to accept the non-Islamic African people's way of life because they object to Islam and its customs and way of life as preached by me from Allah. So he ain't talking about no Sunni Islam. He said as preached by me from Allah. They rejecting that. They rejecting that for this Afrocentric stuff and this savage, and they degrade themselves. And it does not help the black man at all. So then the messenger goes on. He says non-Islamic customs. The wearing of non-Islamic costumes and bushy hair is the style of savages, uncivilized and uneducated people of Africa. So them Afrocentric people didn't like all this, the messenger talking about their thing like that. Talking about it's savage to wear an afro. Because when you read the messenger's articles, he was straight up like that about everything. Yes, straight up. He wasn't trying to be with the oh my black brother stuff. It was straight up, it's savage. Whether you like it or not, it's savage. Wearing long hair is savage. Wearing beards is savage. Wearing all these dashikis and kente cloths is savage. It's uncivilized. And he told his fathers, if I catch you wearing it, you out of here. Straight up. How the messenger was when you read his articles. So when you read his articles and then you listen to brothers today, you can tell like, no, the messenger wasn't talking about that. Like, why do you spend so much time talking on this but don't talk on that at all? The stuff that we spend so much time talking about, the messenger didn't spend that much time talking about that like that. He spent time civilizing the black man. That's what he all praise due to Allah. He spent time telling you what's savage. He spent time telling you the history of them Indians. He told you the history of the caves. He told you the 50,000-year history of black people in Africa. He told you about the history of the devil here. That's what he was telling you. To civilize you. To get you to accept a way of life. Not to just blow your head up. To make you think you can do anything you want to do. No. He let you know. You're going to be under the great champion of Islam, Master Farad Muhammad. That's what you're going to be under. This is what you accept. Accept it and live, reject it and die. That's what he used to say. So he says, they do not dignify themselves in dress. Many of the men will come here holding high office, practically dressed with their naked bosoms showing and wearing very cheap and rough clothes. These people must be taught to dignify themselves. As the scientists say, the first thing to teach a savage is to cover his nakedness. Yes, sir. He used to call him a savage. Yes, the first thing you do when you teaching a savage is to cover himself. Now, when you go look at Africa, even today, you still got African nations who do the African half-naked dance stuff. Still be wearing the kente cloth. Still be going to the UN half-naked. But we don't teach the black man that's savagery. We don't even talk about that. That's kept out of this new school stuff. We don't talk about the rules and what makes a person savage and uncivilized. Right. The black man don't know what makes him uncivilized. Right. He just think I'm God. I'm God, but I got a dirty beard on, a fly catcher, a germ catcher. I don't know no rules, but I just know all this chess stuff. Do what I want to do. Wear what I want to wear. Say what I want to say. Have as many women as I want to have. Because I'm God, I do what I want to do. The messenger ain't teach nothing close to that. He taught rules. He, all praise due to Allah. He taught the chastisement of gods by the great God. That's how the messenger taught the black man is God. If we teach it like that, I'm with that. All praise due to Allah. I'm with the great God and the little gods. I'm with that. I ain't with all this we all up here. I ain't with that. I want to let it be known, I ain't with that. Care what these brothers say. When you science it, I'm with the great champion of Islam, Master Farad Muhammad, and the little gods. I'm with that. All praise is due to Allah. Because that's how the messenger taught. He always taught about Master Farad Muhammad. He said he's the greatest God that ever was born since the creation of the universe. The black man needs to know that about his God. The greatest God since the creation of the universe. Why the black man don't know that about our God? But they know about you though. Still here with the white man. Still ain't got nothing for yourself. But they don't know about they Savior. No, the messenger didn't teach like that. He always let us know this come from the God, Master Farad Muhammad. He said, we the Muslims. That's what he said. And that's how he taught Islam. The big God and the little God. So he goes on to say, he says, I would not like for you to think I am making mockery of black Africa. That is my motherland and people. But I would like that you know I do not want you to be disgraced by trying to follow the styles, ways, and tribal language of the African people just to be called going back to the black man. The only way to go back to the black man's traditional religion is to accept Islam. The message. Everything was about Islam. That's what the black man's religion is. Islam. All that tribal stuff is savage. The black man needs to know that we was Muslims from the beginning. Our nature is to submit to the will of Allah. That's why you got to teach the history of the people. You got to teach them the history of the Native Americans for them to understand what's going on. What happened to them is because they broke the rules of Islam. Them gods. And they got a 16,000 year chastisement. We was in Africa for 50,000 years because we disagreed, Shabazz, with the gods. So we lived savage. As gods. For 35,000 years, some more gods, Allah left them to go savage and they Hindus. They worship anything. They don't know who God is. They gods. But the great number one God, Master Farad Muhammad, came to make it all right. All praise is due to Allah. He came to fix it all. To create a world that's going to live forever. That's how the messenger taught that the black man is God. He taught you the history of the chastisement of gods who disobeyed the great number one God. He taught you the history of what happened when you disagree with the gods. 50,000 years as a savage. You still a savage. You still need Islam to wake you up. To put you on the right path. You need to get back to your nature and accept Islam. Be submissive. That's how the messenger taught the black man's God. That's how he taught it. He says, Islam has been the religion of the black man ever since the creation of the heavens and the earth. He says there never were various religious beliefs and idol worship before the fall of our fathers in Africa, which took place 50,000 years ago. The fall of our people. So we, gods, fell 50,000 years ago from disagreeing with the other gods. That's what the messenger said. He says, according to the teachings of the history of black Africa by Almighty God himself in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, to whom praises are due forever. Always going back to Master Farad Muhammad. He wasn't acting like he got this from himself. He wasn't acting like he was so wise. He's saying, this is what he taught me about our history. And for you to be civilized, you got to accept his teachings through me. That's how the messenger taught this black man's God stuff. You got to accept Master Farad Muhammad through me. It's the only way you're going to be saved from the destruction. Through me. Right. So he says, I dare you to dispute anything I say. I have a whole book of proof. Not on paper, but in my head. I say, I got a whole book in my head to disprove this nonsense you talking about. The master, but he still has from Allah. He put the book in my head. But I got a whole book in my head to disprove all this Afrocentric stuff you talking about. So the messenger goes on to say, he says that he gave to me to verify that which is written of the history of the black man by the Bible and Holy Quran, which I cannot go into detail of in this limited article. He says, but there is no question, I assure you, that you can ask me about your history that God has not already taught me. He says the fall. He says the tradition of black people in this region at the time was called the jungles of East Africa. He used to call it a jungle. Yes. The jungle of East, that's what we supposed to be telling the black man. That's the knowledge of self. Tell him that's the jungles of East Asia, brother. Living like a savage. All that is savage. He says the name Africa is from Alexander the Great. He called this continent Africa and the people Africans. But originally they were called the people of the jungle of East Asia. This is the effect of disagreement between the gods, as it was in the time of the making of the white race by one Yaqub, the father of the white race. So it was with the one who disagreed with the majority of scientists that caused us to be in this region. Savages, living below recognized civilization or civilized man. So that's what the messenger said. The tribe of Shabazz in Africa. Because our father Shabazz disagreed with the gods. Yes. So because of that, he came here and we was living savages for 50,000 years. That's the knowledge of self. So now that you get the knowledge of self, and you know that Islam is as old as God itself. You see, for 50,000 years, because of a disagreement over Islam, we was living savages. So now you know the truth. You teaching against that savage. We was savages, brother. We disagreed with the gods, man. And that's why we was in Africa. We need to agree with the God this time to be saved from this destruction. That's how the messenger taught the black man's God. You got to submit this time. You got to see your error this time. Just like the Indian. He got to know his history. His history ain't all the black man is God. You broke the law of Islam. So now you're going to have to accept. You accept it or reject it. You accept it and live, reject it and die. Same thing. Them Hindus, everybody going to have to accept Islam. Accept it and live, reject it and die. The messenger said this time, well, if you don't accept Islam, you being destroyed. Everybody who going to be in the hereafter going to be submitting to the will of Allah who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. That's what he said. That's his world. He the God of that world. So if you don't want to submit, you fuel for the fire. If you don't want to pray, you fuel for the fire. If you don't want to shave, you want to wear afros, you fuel for the fire. That's Islam. That's the knowledge of self. So the messenger goes on. He says, original people, actually you are the original people of the earth, from the originator of the heavens and the earth. But this wavering disagreement between our fathers 50,000 years ago and the other 23 scientists or gods of the black people of Arabia and the whole planet earth made his venture to create or make a new people according to his idea in the jungles of East Asia, Africa. He says today, the all-knowing one and the all-wise one, God in person, Master Farad Muhammad, the great Mahdi, is revealing for the first time the real truth of the creation of the heavens and the earth. Many on the earth, or man on earth, the black man, the made man, the white man, the origins of their existence, and the way of changing the work of gods, and the making and creation of their work into cycles of 25,000 years each. We have never known these truths before today. The black man in America, the Americas, the black African, are ignorant to these facts of their superiority by nature over the made man. The black man is 100% deceived by the arch-deceiver white race. Therefore, it takes the supreme being with a messenger made after his order to bring us out of this death of self-ignorance. He always letting it be known, it takes a supreme being with a message. Always letting you know, all of this history I'm telling you, but it takes a supreme being with a message. Always bring it back to that. Align the message all the time. He says total failure. When it comes to actual facts, Christianity for the last 2,000 years have been a total failure. The only way out of this confusion and warring Christian race is that we, the black people, separate ourselves from them into our own and live in peace and harmony in the nation of the black man. That was the message. Now we're going to look at a little bit more of this Malcolm X thing. Because the whole thing about Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark is they don't like how the messenger did Malcolm. So they praise Malcolm. But the problem of us again is we do not talk about Malcolm X like the messenger used to talk about Malcolm X. So when they praising Malcolm X, saying Malcolm was a good guy, and we sympathize with Malcolm X, because we always like to disconnect the Nation of Islam to the assassination of Malcolm X. The messenger didn't do that. He said that Malcolm X's death was a cause of his hypocrisy. He didn't ever say, oh, we ain't had nothing to do. He said Allah had something to do with his death.
Malcolm is the victim of his own preaching. He preached for it, and so he became the victim of it.
You do not personally feel that anyone, any member of the Brotherhood of Islam committed this crime?
No, we don't do a thing like that.
And
we are not permitted to do a thing like that by the Quran. A hypocrite is not to be killed. He preached the doom of the white man, as I have been preaching and still preaching. He preached that the white man was the devil. Then when he went out for himself, losing the guidance of Allah, the light of Allah, he went back then and fell on their side.
Do you feel you were in any personal danger?
No.
Have you heard the reports that there were members of other groups moving towards Chicago in an attempt to hurt you?
Yes, sir.
What's your reaction to that, sir?
I begin with Allah and His protection, and I will end. If Allah pleases, it's okay with me.
We didn't kill him, but he deserved to get what he got.
That's right.
That's how the messenger and the Muslims used to talk about Malcolm. They wasn't trying to talk all the FBI and the government and the files and all. No, he was a hypocrite.
Right.
We didn't actually physically kill him, but the messenger did not tell us that we do not kill hypocrites because he didn't want nothing to happen to Malcolm.
Right.
He had the article called Victory of the Apostle, where he said Allah would chastise them. He didn't say that because, the nation had nothing to do with the death of Malcolm. No, Allah will take care of him. The messenger said he talked about me so bad. I was sick, but I got healthy. I got well to talk about this hypocrite. That was the messenger said. He said death is too good for Malcolm. He said Malcolm lucky he wasn't living in the days of Moses and the prophets. Moses and the prophets used to take the heads of the hypocrites. Go back and listen to what the messenger said. That's what he said. On this we leave Malcolm. No. Allah gonna get this hypocrite. Allah gonna get him. But if his people come up to our meetings, we gonna bust their head. Come up in here bothering no Muslims. You got incidents where Malcolm X's people had to go to court because they came to temples with guns. And the police caught them. So you sympathizing with Malcolm, making people think he was this innocent guy that the messenger turned on. It makes it seem like what they say about the messenger is true. But we're going to read an article from the Muhammad Speaks newspaper on how Muslims used to talk about Malcolm. This is just one paper. This is the February 6, 1970, Muhammad Speaks. Now this is how Muslims used to talk about Malcolm. Because everybody used to write articles about Malcolm. The Messenger used to write articles about Malcolm. Ministers used to write articles about Malcolm. Captains, regular Muslims used to write articles about Malcolm. You had the National Secretary write an article on Malcolm. You had the Supreme Captain write an article on Malcolm. You had the brother, this article is Eugene Majid. This brother drew cartoons. He took a break from drawing cartoons to write an article about this hypocrite. That's how much Muslims used to talk about this hypocrite. While we sitting up here talking about, oh, the nation didn't have nothing to do. No. Let's read what this brother said. Brother Eugene Majid, he said Malcolm X, a double hypocrite. Not just a single hypocrite, a double hypocrite. He said he was a hypocrite to the white people as well as to the black Muslims. And he died a hypocrite to both. That's how they used to talk about him. Anytime you interviewed a Muslim when the Messenger was alive talking about Malcolm, you knew he was a hypocrite when that brother got done. He wasn't talking like Malcolm converted more people to Islam than we did now. That's what these brothers say. Talk about Malcolm was a revolutionary. No, he was a hypocrite. So he goes on to say, he says if God had loved Malcolm and had wanted him to be the service of preaching to his black people, he would have saved Malcolm and killed Elijah. They would say if God would have loved him. God hates hypocrites. So if God would have loved him, he would have saved Malcolm and killed Elijah. That's how Muslims used to talk about Malcolm. This 1970. Malcolm been dead 5 years. Been dead. Ain't no success at all, but Muslims still found it necessary to talk about this hypocrite. 5 years after his death. They wasn't talking about we ain't had nothing to do with his death. They said Allah had a hand in his death. He was a hypocrite. He was an example for all hypocrites. What happened to Malcolm? That's how they used to talk about him. They different from us. All we want to do with Islam today is use Elijah Muhammad's name to get the people to believe our lies. We learn when we say he was the this and the that for the message. So you just want to use the messenger's name to make people think he's something that he's not. That's all this stuff is today. When you listen to how Muslims used to represent Islam then, 99% of these brothers who ministers, 99% of these brothers who in front of the people, only using the messenger's name to get their lives accepted. That's all they doing. Because you can go on YouTube right now. You can look at Malcolm X. Look at how many Muslims talk about Malcolm X today. Just go on YouTube. How many of them call him a hypocrite? How many of them say he got what he deserved? How many of them say he was a traitor? A Benedict Arnold? How many of them tell him the lies he told against the message? Nobody. Hardly. A few. So people believe that Malcolm was the innocent one and the messenger and the Muslims was the bad. Because we don't talk about Malcolm like the messenger did. When the messenger died, the people loved the messenger. But when you go on YouTube now and look at all them videos made about the messenger, anybody can slander the messenger today. Because we teach all this love for Malcolm X. So it goes on to say, it says, Malcolm was paraded around the country and around the world, scandalizing Muhammad's name and work of black salvation with two of his old-time sweethearts. Sweethearts. Now wives. This is how Muslims used to talk about them sisters too. They used to talk about them just as bad as they used to talk about Malcolm X. Just as bad. These are hypocritical women. Talk about them children too. Your mama disgraced you. You got that to argue with her, but she disgraced you. That's how they used to talk about them children. It says he was disgracing before the world, making them and their children absolutely the ugliest sight that the world has ever seen. Them sisters and them children. He disgraced them. They wasn't talking about them with the messenger wives. They used to say that these was Malcolm X's girlfriend. Because when the messenger was alive, Evelyn and Lucille was the only two sisters that tried to take the messenger to court. These other sisters they bringing up on stage now didn't do that. They was like, I'm leaving it alone. But I guess they convinced them in this generation you can get you some money. So now they coming like, oh, I was a wife too. But initially it was just Evelyn and Lucille. They used to write articles in the Muhammad Speaks newspaper talking about them other sisters didn't want to disgrace themselves. But Evelyn and Lucille, every Muslim was talking about them. Talking about how they trying to disgrace them and them children. So he goes on to say, he says, and the mothers were willingly sacrificing all the moral and respect of themselves and their children to the world for the sake of this evil hypocrite of Muhammad. He says the mothers are still alive and have their children to answer to the disgrace that they have made of their children. When the children are old enough, the children are bound to become Muslims of Islam to the disgrace of their evil, hypocritical mothers. Evil, hypocritical mothers. That's what they were talking about them sisters. They ain't never say that they was the wives of the messenger. That's right. But since today, we just use the messenger name to get our lives accepted. So we ain't talking about Malcolm like this. The black man now don't even know that we believe that them was Malcolm's girlfriends. That's never brought up like that. Right. They talk like these was the wives of the messenger. And Malcolm X just had a little misunderstanding. He didn't know the Bible and Holy Quran like he was supposed to know. So he didn't know that these was really the wives of the messenger. That's how we talk. They wasn't talking like that when the messenger was alive. So he goes on to say, he says, who were in hopes of joining to destroy Muhammad. Even today they beg Muhammad to give them something for their children because they are not able to feed and protect them. They was still writing letters to the messenger. He wasn't giving them nothing. Let them starve. None of them kids either. Let them all starve. Let them all starve. That's how they used to write articles. Muslims different than us. Muslims different than us, bro. I'm telling you. That's why I'm a strong advocate of these Muhammad Speaks newspapers. I want to be, I'm telling you. When you read this Islam, what Muslim don't want to be a Muslim like these Muslims was Muslims? Sympathizing with Malcolm X, all he said about the message. You got video online now, the messenger mud watching the messenger. When the messenger was alive, Muslims hated to listen to Malcolm talk like that. But we can listen to that and still sympathize with him. They, oh, the nation ain't had nothing to do with his death. If anything, you say Allah had a hand in it. Right. Allah is the Lord of the world. Right. If he wanted to protect Malcolm, he would have just protected him. Right. If you don't want to really get into it, say, hey, it was the will of Allah, brother. Why didn't Allah do something to the messenger? I mean, raise the question. Why didn't Allah do something to the messenger if Malcolm was so right? How come he couldn't find a friend? How come the messenger died like a king and he died like a hypocrite? Why, I mean, why are the brothers that was with him double-crossed him? I mean, I don't know. That's how I see it. Look like he died like a hypocrite to me. They got pictures of this hypocrite in Life magazine laid all out on the floor with an enemy doing CPR on him. Messenger ain't died like that. The messenger died like a king. How he died. So if Malcolm was so right, how come Allah didn't save him like this brother said? He was so right. We don't talk like that because we sympathize. We be feeling sorry. So he says the children will finally come over to Islam that Muhammad knows. Their evil and hypocritical mothers will come when they have been cast on their faces, hands, and knees, crawling back to the best. That's how these brothers writing about these sisters. They ain't gonna just come walking back. We want to see them crawling on their faces, hands and knees, back to the messenger. That's how we want to see. We ain't making them no Nation of Islam superstars. Like, oh, them the wives and the children of the messenger. The messenger, these women, it says in 1970, was still writing letters to the messenger asking for money. He ain't give them nothing. Or them children. Why we don't say that? Why the messenger ain't give you nothing? If you was his wife. Right. Why the messenger ain't give these children? Why they writing articles in the Muhammad Speaks newspaper about the messenger children like that if that's his children? Right. Why didn't he tell him, like, don't talk about that? Leave that alone. That was my wife. Right. Malcolm just didn't have a misunderstanding. He letting them write all kind of articles against these sisters. Right. But in today's Nation of Islam, we have a brother. Think about how much of a hypocrisy that is. Your daddy. You know your brothers and sisters. These people tried to accuse your daddy of these women being his children when he was alive, and he told you and the public, these ain't my children. Then you see somebody who knew your daddy bring these same women up and say these is your daddy's children.
Yeah.
How would you feel? Would you think he was a friend of yours?
No.
Would you not tell people that ain't my daddy's children? But don't nobody do that. This brother can bring all of these sisters on stage. Even they introduce these children now as he's the son of the messenger. They don't even just introduce him like this so-and-so. No, this is the son of Elijah Muhammad. Sometimes when lost founds come up and talk about these people, like, yeah, the son of Elijah Muhammad. Sometimes I don't even know what they talking about. Like, who? Like, oh, yeah, the son of Elijah Muhammad. A lost found. Because we don't talk about this like the messenger used to talk about.
Right.
So he says, their evil and hypocritical mothers will come when they have been cast on their faces, hands and knees, by the chastisement of Allah, which is destined to come to them for what they have done to try to disgrace Muhammad. We all shall see. That's what Muslims want to see. I want to see them crawling on their faces, hands and knees back to the temple under Elijah Muhammad's Islam.
Yes.
That's how they used to talk about them sisters. Now, if you go on YouTube now, go listen to all these people who using Elijah Muhammad name to get their lives accepted and hear what they saying about Malcolm X. Because Malcolm X has become an issue today.
Yes.
They talking about Malcolm X a lot. They interviewing people about what happened with Malcolm X. Because every time they had these little series about Malcolm X, black people start bringing up that assassination stuff again. We don't never say he was a hypocrite.
Right.
He died the death of a hypocrite. He was a hypocrite to the nation of Islam.
Yes.
He was a traitor to the nation. That's what would happen to anybody
Yes.
who turned hypocrite against the messenger like he did.
Right.
That's what the messenger said. The messenger used Malcolm, his brother Khalil, and I think that was it. His brother Khalil, them was the ones that you will read about most frequently in when messengers talk about hypocrites. His brother Khalil and Malcolm. And he said that Malcolm is an example for all hypocrites. So Malcolm had become a part of the teachings on hypocrites
Yes.
with the messenger. He used to say, just like Muhammad had his hypocrites, I got my hypocrites. So just like you talk about the hypocrites of Muhammad, that's how you're supposed to talk about Malcolm X. He was a hypocrite to the nation of Islam. None of this FBI file stuff is straight religious.
Yes.
None of this government stuff. None of this old Gene Roberts stuff. He was a hypocrite.
Yeah.
He got what hypocrites get. That's how you all praise due to Allah. That's how people accept the message. Because you got to accept the truth of the message. Because the truth is going to prevail. If you lie to a brother and try to get him to accept a lie, what happens when the truth come out? What you going to do then? You look like a fool. So you might as well just give him the truth and just let him choose for himself. Because he would appreciate you if you give him the truth. Because I was a lost found before. And I'm telling you, this Nation of Islam stuff is something when you don't know.
Right.
You hear this brother saying something. You hear this brother saying something. You hear the messenger say something. You like, what? Which one I'm supposed to believe?
Right.
I remember the first time I saw this brother because I didn't see that thing about them women until I gained the respect for the messenger. I didn't see all that what really happened stuff. I had been reading the message to the Blackman, doing my research, and I gained a respect for the message. So when I seen this what really happened thing, and saw him bring all these women on stage and say they was the wife of the messenger, it kind of hurt me. I wasn't even no Muslim, but I had gained a respect for him. Because the way they presented the people, it seemed like the messenger was a liar. That's what it seemed like. It seemed like he was having affairs with these women, and he keeping it from the believers, and these my children, and I'm just going to let all this happen, but these really the wives of the messenger. He writing articles in the Muhammad Speaks newspaper telling people, these are not my children.
Right.
They trying to take me to court to force me to claim that these are my children, and they are not my children.
Yes.
Not my children. And when the messenger was alive, you go and find one black reporter, one black group that brought this back up again. When you have black reporters used to report on the message, they ain't never talk about this stuff. They ain't never say, well, what about the wives of the message? What about these little secretaries? The Muslims made such an example out of Malcolm that people left that alone. They wasn't bringing this up. So when they used to talk about Malcolm as a hypocrite, people heard this more than they hear people sympathizing with Malcolm. So when the messenger passed away, people loved the message. When the sister said she saw his mansion, she said he deserved that. They didn't think about him the way we think about him today. When you go on YouTube. Well, brothers and sisters, We don't want to prolong the time. So I leave you as I came in the nation of Islam, greeting words of peace of Assalamu alaikum.
Enjoying the show? Help keep us on the air. 313-371-7033. That's 313-371-7033 to make a donation.
Brothers and sisters, we rise for prayer. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. All praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Merciful. So, Master's Day of Judgment in which we now live. The alone do we serve, and the alone seek for thine help and aid. O Allah, please guide us on the right path. Path of those upon whom thou wilt bestow thy favors. Not on the path of those upon whom thy wrath is brought down. Nor of those who go astray after they heard thy teachings. Say he, Allah is one God. Allah is he of whom nothing is independent, but upon whom we all depend. He begat us not, nor is he begotten, there is none like him. And I bear witness that none is to be served, worship, or praise besides Allah, who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. And I bear witness that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is thy true servant and last apostle. Ameen. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us not to do anything to anyone that we wouldn't have done it to ourselves and treat everybody right, even the devil. Assalamu alaikum.
Watch us on YouTube. Search Muhammad's Temple of Islam through your YouTube app, on your phone, smart TV, or your computer. Be sure to subscribe to Muhammad's Temple of Islam when you watch us on YouTube.